So the House of Keys has finished its sitting, and obviously a big point of order has been the whole thing about Ramsey Bakery. This comes under DEFA. The Chief Minister, though, has made a statement as well. It's obviously going to be on your plate. Is this too early yet? I mean, it all seems that the government knew nothing much about it.
Yes, I think it is very much early stages at this point. And although the question was directed to the Chief Minister, there's obviously impacts that fall under enterprise in terms of the employment elements. There's a big piece of this sits around food security, which is why the Chief Minister has asked me to lead on that. But this is very early days. At the minute, we have had some early discussions with some stakeholders, but obviously there's a number of people that we want to have meetings with. And as the Chief Minister said, I'm meeting with the directors of Ramsey Bakery tomorrow evening, so it's Wednesday evening.
See, this is what's been unusual or surprising everybody, that there was no hint from the company, no two-way traffic at all between government and the private company.
And I think the difference, I suppose, I would try and split out, because some people have said, how can you not know companies are struggling? And I think it wasn't that we aren't aware that there are challenges, because certainly I've talked about that in House of Keys, in Tynwald. I recognise that there are huge challenges around input costs. So we do know that there is an increased pressure on companies. However, with a lot of companies, we have had a dialogue with them. They've come and talked to DEFA, talked to Department for Enterprise. That wasn't the case in this circumstance. This did come, it was one of the people who are supplied by Ramsey Bakery who'd sent me the thing saying, have you heard? And at that point, it was the first time I was made aware.
Obviously, the government has enough things on its plate without taking over things like bakeries or the outlet shops, but it is going to have an impact on employment, especially up north in Ireland, isn't it, if this goes ahead as is?
So, yeah, and I think that was recognised today by the Chief Minister. We recognise there are people who are working at Ramsey Bakery, some of whom have been there, I understand, a significant period of time. And my thoughts are there with them and also with the directors who've had to make this decision and say, at the minute, I'm not privy to the information as to how they've come about that. And also, that's not really my story to tell, even if I am shared any of that information. We have to remember this is a private company. But certainly from my perspective, the piece we need to look at is how we can support those people who supply to Ramsey Bakery and those people who are supplied by Ramsey Bakery. Some of them have already started putting together their business plans as to where they will be getting bread from, and ultimately that it will be picked up by an import market where it is a white or brown slice loaf, some of those more commodity products, I suppose we would say.
So Thursday's the day. Until then, you know nothing more than anybody else, I guess, at this stage.
Yes, the meeting's Wednesday, obviously.
Wednesday,
but following that, I think it's right that I can update Tynwald colleagues first, and I need to obviously have a talk with various other colleagues who are working to support in other ways. So whether that be through Treasury, through Department for Enterprise, or the Chief Minister directly.
And as the Chief Minister alluded to, we're at the beginning of this perfect storm, because it costs of producing that bread, and it's not going to be the only people that's going to be affected. It's going to affect all sorts of businesses on the island. A lot of this is going to come under your thing as well. I mean, milk prices, they're talking about all those sort of things going on as well. Is this going to happen here?
So we've already seen a milk price order go up, but yet I've been out and visited a number of dairy farms recently, and we remain in a position where some of those dairy farms are being paid less for their milk than it costs them to produce. There is a real challenge, and that's because a whole host of things, but some of them I've talked about. The cost of grain has gone up. That obviously affects the dairy, but that also affects anyone who's got animals and they need to feed. The cost of nitrogen's gone up, which has a significant impact on fertiliser. But equally, we've got those costs that then affect all industries. Those ones are quite specific to agriculture. But we look at the cost of energy, gas, whether you've got ovens or whether it's because of other machinery that you need to run. The cost of fuel, whether that be because of freight or whether that be because you've got tractors on your farm or because you're delivering bread. There's a whole host of things. And then the cost of labour, because as inflation goes up, obviously there's a demand to put wages up. And we've seen a commitment, which I think is the right commitment, to bring us in line in terms of our minimum wage with our living wage, but we must acknowledge also, though, that there is an impact that has on a business that has ever tighter margins. So it is a very challenging time. That's why we had, even prior actually to this announcement, put together the Silver Group for food security to really look from a strategic level as to whether our current food security strategy is appropriate or whether we need to look and make amendments.